Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. If you want to boost the serotonin, all you gotta do is hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. 2 clicks and you know you did something good. That said, our first story of the day is by Frenchie's Curls. Airport malicious compliance turned into a paid-for holiday. There were a couple of airport malicious compliances a while ago, and it reminded me of what happened to my husband and I a few years ago. It starts a similar way but has a pretty sweet ending. After a wonderful few days visiting New Orleans, hubby and I were on our way back to Europe. We had to make a connection in Boston and needed to collect our luggage to check them in again onto the following flight. We had no issue at check-in for the first flight, but when we got to the desk in Boston, the member of staff told us our bags were too heavy. After some back and forth where we tried to figure out why they were fine for the previous flight, but suddenly weren't for this one, the employee wouldn't budge because of an obscure company policy that wasn't even on their website, and they were adamant we pay the extra there and then. They were visibly annoyed and barely civil when we politely declined and told them we would be back. They want our bags to be lighter? No problem, we'll make our bags lighter. We walked away from the desk and put some extra layers of clothes on, as well as filled our pockets with some small but heavy items, all while still very visible from the employee. We looked more like misshapen voodoo dolls than actual humans. They weren't impressed, to say the least. But here's the cherry on the cake. As we were rejoining the queue to check in, I hear an announcement about our flight. Turns out the company had overbooked it and they were looking for passengers willing to be transferred to the following flight instead, which was 2 days later. As compensation, these passengers would be put up in a hotel for 2 nights for free, get breakfast and dinner paid for, and receive 600 euros each. Yes, you heard that right. It took my husband and me a whole of 30 seconds to decide we would take them up on the offer. We were both self-employed at the time with no commitments on the 2 days following our planned return date, and neither of us had ever visited Boston. Plus, we had just gotten engaged, so it seemed like a great way to keep celebrating. When we got to the desk, the staff member looked at our rather bulky attires and barely managed to hold back the eye roll, but when we said we were volunteering to be moved to the next flight, their manager was so glad they treated us like royalty, which made the original employee even more annoyed. While we were waiting for the paperwork to be done, we put all our extra layers back in the bags with huge grins on our face. We were transferred to a super nice hotel. Our room was basically a 1-bedroom flat. The bed was so wide I could have slept perpendicularly in it, and spent 2 fantastic days discovering Boston and being paid to do so. Turns out no one else took the offer, so they didn't manage to free up enough space for the group they had overbooked. Paying for our stay didn't help their situation at all, but that didn't tarnish our experience one bit. Had we not decided not to be bullied and paying extra by a rather rude employee, we would not have heard the announcement and would have missed out on a pretty sweet adventure. If you had no commitments requiring you to take that flight back in that instant, would you take that offer of staying in a hotel for 2 days, paid for breakfast and dinner, and the equivalent of 600 euros just to wait 2 more days to take your flight back? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Itch Mia. I'm not competent enough? Okay then. I'm in my first ever real corporate job. Before that, I went to university for roughly 6 years to get 2 degrees, both psychology, and during my time of study had part-time jobs, internships, freelanced, and learned to code a bit. Made a website, some scripts to automate my internship tasks, etc. Nothing fancy. All my previous jobs were tech-related, so I eventually got hired as an IT consultant despite my degree. A lot of companies refused to even invite me. They said I would bring important values, skills, and knowledge to the team. I did. I gave trainings on communication, creativity techniques, and project management, all while learning stuff about development and consulting, so it was a win-win. After about 6 months, I got the responsibility of a UI redesign, since I was the only woman and they needed someone good with design. But it happens that I love creative tasks and I was happy to take on responsibility. A year goes by and I did a splendid job. So I was told by my colleagues, management, and customers. Although I was responsible for project management, I created design drafts to later discuss them with our UX department. I read and learned a lot about design principles, brand management, and usability. The design team even said they would love to have someone like me in every project, because our collaboration helps them a lot to solve issues more efficiently. After a year of working like this, we got restructured. My awesome manager got promoted and I got a new one. To sum it up, this guy had been there for 20 years and wants the next 20 to be as calm as possible, which means don't work too hard, no one will thank you. I observed that he can only keep this up because he's good at networking and making friends all over the company and throughout the hierarchy. Being there 20 years and paying favors at the right time, he settled pretty good without doing or knowing anything about the job. After a few months, a customer comes to me with a request for a new feature and a really simple mock-up of the new UI. I tell them that we have to get the okay from our UX department before it goes to development, but it shouldn't take long. To save time for the UX and devs, I made the mock-up look better. Well, it was just one screen and didn't take me more than 15 minutes. To be honest, explaining the business process to the designer would have taken 3 one-hour meetings to produce the same, and our design team was already drowning in work, and they even thanked me. So because I wanted to save the company time and money, I didn't think more of it. The customer was very happy to see their vision, and my mock-up made its way to their top management. He told my boss that I did a great job on that design and that they wanted it developed ASAP. My boss saw all the extra work, high-level hierarchy, pressure, and attention, and I think he got a little jealous of all the praise, but eventually he snapped at me with, "You shouldn't have sent the designs without my permission, and also creating designs does not even correspond to your competence." Malicious compliance. Since then, every task that was handed to me that requires some creative work, I quickly call a meeting with our designer and discuss every detail with him. We get along great and it's fun to collaborate on these things. In addition, I couldn't make the presentation pretty anymore for my boss. He ended up showing the most horribly designed slides I have ever seen, which I would have given him feedback on if only I was competent enough. I transferred jobs to another department, and I don't hold a grudge against the company, the manager, or the politics. I loved my job because I learned so much. Also, how big corporations work, and that there sometimes is more politics involved than common sense. Sadly, I would take it a step further and say, if you get involved in big corporations like that, and you get deep enough into it, I would argue that politics is probably more than a sometimes kind of thing. I don't know, I guess you shouldn't be too surprised that sometimes people in charge are the yes men that got put in that position because they say all the right things to the people above them, or just simply the nepotism thing rearing its ugly head in. Our next story is by Don't Go Hollow. You can only use the discount on items that you're buying for yourself. This happened earlier whilst clothes shopping with my girlfriend. We were at a clothing store that sells both men's and women's clothes. Every year in September, they offer a student discount before the university/college term starts, and this year it's a big 20% off all non-sale items. We decided to do 2 separate transactions due to one item being a gift for her friend, and my girlfriend goes first. When it comes to paying, I show my student card as I'll be the one paying, only to get, "Sorry, we can only accept the discount on items you're purchasing for yourself." Cue the malicious compliance. We both look at each other, and my girlfriend tells the cashier not to worry, that she doesn't want to proceed and will put the items aside. The cashier next to the person serving us becomes available, and I go to her whilst this conversation's going on, as nobody else is in the queue and we're doing 2 separate transactions. Initially, I was going to purchase a pair of jeans, but I pick up all the items that my girlfriend put aside. I go to pay and show my student card. Cashier number 1 butts in abruptly saying, "I've just told him that the discount can only be applied on items he's purchasing for himself." To which I respond, "I'd like to purchase this jumper, 3 thongs, a blouse and skirt for myself, please." Cashier number 2 is grinning whilst cashier number 1 is lost for words and bumbles. She, referring to my girlfriend, "just put them aside. Are you sure they're for you?" My response was, "Yes, they're definitely for me. I'd been eyeing up those items and took a fancy to them. When I saw they were put aside, I jumped at the opportunity to purchase them. Do you think they'll suit me?" Cashier number 1 storms off. I pay and get the 20% discount. I was reading the comments on this post and the second one says, "If necessary, I will put them on." Just imagining OP like, "What, you want to see me try them on?" Can I also just say that thank God for stuff like Venmo and Zelle nowadays. You can just do this group buy thing and get that one discount for all the items, and then whoever can just Venmo you over the cost of the discounted item. It's great. This next story is by ULFR. "Oh, I'll just hold on to it. Leave it, it's fine." Not sure how many folks have dogs, specifically male dogs, but for anyone who doesn't, pro tip, anything upright and stationary can and will be peed on. Fire hydrants? Of course. Signs? Absolutely. Plants? You bet. Innocent bystanders who haven't moved recently? Oops. I swear that's only happened twice. One fine day about 2 years or so ago, my pupper and I were at the dog park doing dog park things. I throw the ball, he chases it down, sometimes he'll bring it back, sometimes he'll leave it random places, sometimes he'll bring it to a random stranger in the park and look at them like they're soft until they figure out he wants them to throw the ball. The entire time this is happening, the whole park is getting all the P-mails replied to one spritz at a time. This particular time, we had the entire dog park to ourselves for a little while, and these two ladies come in with super cute beagle puppies. One woman sensibly didn't bring a bag with her into the park. She had pockets, and the other lady had a very big bag, purse, thing I'm required to hold at arm's length with 2 fingers at the mall while she's hands-on shopping to preserve my masculinity. And it looked like it cost about as much as a used car. This was the kind where she'd get scoliosis from carting the thing around, but it's large enough to fit actual kitchen appliances. So these two ladies are standing there talking to each other and monitoring their puppies, which is good. I've more or less dissolved into a puddle of aw, and my dog makes friends because at that time in his life, he'd still play with other dogs. Then I noticed the woman with the bag has put her bag on the ground, which is a thing you do when you've probably got a car battery crammed in there with all the other stuff ladies need to carry when they're not permitted pockets by the cruel gods of fashion. I noticed this and figure she's new. Once I've collected myself from puddle form, I wait for an opportune moment and toss out an, "Excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but I just wanted to let you know that having your bag on the ground is a bad idea at the dog park. I've seen others hang it on the chain link fence." And I point at the fence that encloses the dog park. Not like there weren't over 9,000 available hangers for her bag. They both look at me in mild shock. Apparently they hadn't noticed me gushing all over their cute puppies. Then they cotton on to what I'm saying, and the sensible lady looks at her friend and rolls her eyes, while the bag lady comes back with, "Oh, I'll just hold on to it," and picks up Bagzilla and slings it back over her shoulder. I shrug and buzz off, which was not a stated request, but was implied. Within 5 minutes, the doom bag is back on the ground, and I meander over because I see my dog go into target lock mode. The stream is imminent. I attempt to give the woman a heads up and make it as far as, Bag lady looks at me and just snaps, "Leave it, it'll be fine." I give her a shrug and mosey over to somewhere clear of the blast radius. Not only does my dog have target lock, he's also parked himself uphill from the bag's impact crater. His leg lifts, and it's no spritz going into, not onto, the bag. It's a full stream. Realizing the most likely reaction from Bag Lady is a designer boot to somewhere, I shout, "Dexter, no!" at max volume and get the desired result. He looks at me and then does an escape and evade because he's a jerk like that sometimes. Both women look at me, then at the dog, then at the bag. Sensible lady is fighting back tears while Bag Lady works herself up into a frenzy. How dare my filthy animal urinate on her valuable stuff? Don't I have him trained? Blah blah blah. She scruffs her puppy and holds him in her arms while maintaining a constant stream of castigation at me. It was honestly kind of impressive. Keeps shouting at me all the way over to her car, throws the puppy in, hope he's okay, and burns rubber leaving the park. The other lady bursts out laughing once the car's out of line of sight and wheezes, "At least you tried." First of all, OP is great at writing stories. There was a lot of names and details in here that were great. I would say that you would hope that dogs are trained a little bit better than that as far as where to go pee, but if you're going to the dog park, you can't rely that other people trained their dogs perfectly. What can you really expect going to a dog park randomly with your big old giant bag and setting it on the ground? If anything, I'm surprised they'd set it on the ground to begin with. If you're going to bring something with you that you carry around on your person every single day, setting it down in a dog park of all places isn't the smartest idea because it's a dog park. At one point or another, a dog has probably peed or the other right there. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.